Being 5:15, I'd like to call the May 6th Board of Public Works meeting order. Stand for a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda, Robert?
No changes.
Looking for motion for the agenda. Second it. Motion made by Mr. Barrington, seconded by Mr. Ritchie to adopt the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. Any public input, or is that all gonna be later? Okay. All right, no public input. Next at line is a approved April 8th meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Herder, second by Mr. Rishi to adopt the April 8th, 2024 meeting minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Wastewater treatment plan updates. Ben?
Good afternoon. So Tri-City Glass and Door won the bid for the window replacement that we budgeted for this year. I don't know when they're gonna have a start date, but they were awarded it. We replaced the ultraviolet light disinfection. Because the system is 21 years old, we have quite a few parts that we've got to replace. Does anybody have any questions regarding the lift station 8 write-up that I have in there regarding the cost? The more I think about it, we don't know what can move into that building. In the past, there was a individual who would work on, I think it was stuff from Tyson, their cleaning or some sort of cleaning equipment, and he was using quite a bit of water at the time. So the more I think about it, we should probably put this in the 2025 budget to be done, because we just never know what other business might come in and use a lot of water. So that way the lift station will be able to take care of it. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions on that? We did start getting polyphosphates into the drinking water, so we're starting to see about 1 milligram per liter more coming in. So that means we have to use more ferric chloride, which I just got a price notice that it's going to increase in 2025 a little bit. So when we do our plant upgrade, the more we can wean ourselves off of chemical, the better we'll be. I'm in the process of working on the second compliance schedule report. Basically, last year I had that big document on what needs to be changed at the treatment facility and all that other stuff. This will basically outline what we've done to get closer to a facility upgrade. I should have that for you next month. And Badger State started today. Because of the rain last week, they were not able to start, and they started around 7 o'clock today, and when I left they already had like 270,000 gallons out. So it's crazy how fast they're going. And then last but not least, we had a meeting with Sherwin-Williams, Corcoran, August Winter. Sounds like everything's going to start roughly June 24th-ish. So they're gonna take the cover out before that, but that's when sandblasting and everything is gonna occur. So hopefully everything goes well on that. Anybody have any questions on anything else?
Any other questions for Ben? Anybody? If none, thanks, Ben. for the
All right,
update.
thanks.
Thank you, Ben.
Next line will be discussion and consideration of downtown streetscaping amenities. Ginger?
That's me, I guess. So after our last, well, after our initial, public interest group meeting, we kind of went through some of these things roughly. And these are all just recommendations. I've looked into a lot of these different, options, and honestly, this is kind of a, I don't want to say personal choice, but I am using my eye to choose these things. So if anybody feels like they don't like it, or, you know, I don't want to be the one that's like, yes, we're doing this way. And then 5 years from now, everybody's like, who chose those ugly planters? I don't want to be that guy. So please feel free to, you know, give me anything you want. So after that community input meeting, we talked a lot about the hanging baskets. They're beautiful, but we do know they're a lot of work, and we're spending how much on every new pole? And a lot on the new poles, and the new poles don't support a hanging basket like our old ones did. So the planters shown are easier to water. They have a reservoir insert so that we can fill up that reservoir and then refill that maybe once a week instead of going and planting or watering almost every day. So in the long run, this will save us money in staff time. They are removable in the snow season. They come with fork slides so that our guys can just take our loader, front end loader, and take them back to the shop. We can plant them at the shop in the spring and just put them in place.
What are they made out of, concrete?
They are concrete, yes. Yep, so there would be 26 in the downtown area. I believe that's 18 down North Water Street, and then the rest would be on Pearl. We might as well just do it all at once so that it's a uniform look until Robert and I kind of looked at Pearl Street and where we can put them now with our current layout, and then in the future when we redo that, we'll fit them in there. Just rough those quotes from Wausau Tile, $789 a piece, totaling $20,000. We were also looking, if you haven't noticed yet, when we were doing Mini Park, they weren't able to salvage the planter that was on the corner. It was very weak on the south side and fell apart when we went to remove it. So we went with a planter that had a round style with it, and we thought we could kind of bookcase the downtown with 3 circular planters that kind of are a lot more brighter and welcoming to the downtown area. Color, just thought we should match what we have for our what's it, terrace, the
Terrace strip.
terrace strips, yep. So we wouldn't want to do like a red or something like that to clash that terrace strip. So this is not the planters that I've shown you, but this is an example of how they would be planted. We would be able to do similar. I'm picturing what we do on North Shawano Street. We have a huge cannonball that is absolutely gorgeous and tall. And then there's, if you know plants at all, they have a way you do a trailing one, and then a showy one, and then one that kind of beds around it. So that's kind of what we would do with these. And the 3 up, they'd be similar to that, but it'd be 1 big one and then 2 small ones in a cluster like that. All right, on the holiday decorations. This was there's a lot of companies out there. I did a lot of research talking with different communities in the area, Ashwaubenon, Menasha, and there was somebody else close that had this similar design. They are over there. Those are actually the city of Menasha's, and one of those is 20 years old and one of those is brand new. So I thought it was interesting that they stick with the design, and it's ageless. You can say if we move, well, Pearl's a great example that we're gonna, be doing Pearl Street. So they come in a 3, 4, 5, and 6 foot option. This is a 3, a 5, and a 6, I believe.
4 or 5.
4 or 5. And we held up, was it the 6?
The 5 footer.
The 5-footer up, because I'm like, oh, we just need a small. Well, if you hold up the small one next to the light pole, it looks ridiculous. It looks tiny,
Yeah.
yes. And so, I would definitely recommend the 5 foot. This 6 foot is a little big. Even Menasha doesn't even do it on their main street because it's so big. If you lift one right now, you're gonna think it's heavy. But I had them down to the street shop I got them early, I think I got them in February. They've been down there this entire time. So let the guys look at them. What do you think of these? And they said they're much lighter than what we had in the past. So they appreciate that. There's a simple bracket that the company develops based on our light pole so that it's retrofitted to our needs. And then there's 4 different varieties to choose from. I think those are all 3 different, or are there 2 similar? 2 similar.
They're similar.
So yeah, so there's 2 other designs there, right there. So it's not the same snowflake over and over. That would kind of drive me nuts. But that's my personal preference, to have a variety. So we have currently 51 locations for them, and would have that with the future. And then last but not least, this is kind of taking over the hanging basket thing, is our new poles are retrofitted to have banners on them. The span would be 5 foot. Shoot, I forgot the banners. I got them in my office, so when I'm done here. Can you get in? Yeah, they're on top of the file cabinets. It's the blue one that's kind of clothy. They're 5 feet. There's also a potential for 51 of these. There's so many different options with this. We can have them up and have them all the same all year round, and never change them. We can change them with the seasons. We can have one that's like always welcome with the New London, and then the other one is seasonal, and we just go every other pole with that. They can be designed really to say anything, or I mean, they could do, that's a picture that Chad took, I believe, and I put the welcome and the logo on, and they can do that. So they can really do anything. The other one is just one that they've made, a general one for Independence Day with New London, Wisconsin on it. Then Lori will bring the actual material is less of a, yeah, if you guys want to look at that. It's kind of, so that gives you an idea how big they'll be also. That's quite large. Yeah. And it's a cloth. It's not like a vinyl coated. Yeah. So, yeah.
They hang wide or
Nope, they hang up and down. Yeah. Yeah. And we could do something as simple as that, where it's just the New London, whatever we want.
See the camp? You wanna see what it is? It's a fair.
Mhm. Thank you, Lori.
Is that one 5 foot or is that 6?
That seems big, doesn't it,
Yeah.
after it's rolled out, yeah.
Hold up the Lori. Yeah, Lori, hold it up, is that 5 feet or 6? I think
take
it's
one
5.
corner and stretch your arms as far as it goes.
That's-
But, yeah,
Let's take it over by the snowflake.
Gotta be 6, that's more, a lot more than 5.
Hold it like
That
this.
way, 'cause-
You know,
how tall are you?
That's gotta
That's
be
six.
6.
That's 6.
Yeah.
You know, $1 bill and measure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But I know.
So pricing there, $130 each. Like I said, they're very, you can work with anything.
Some poles will come fit with them brackets on it.
What's that? Our poles, yeah,
All poles will have. When we went through that whole light phase and everything, we determined that every pole will have a banner bracket or 2 banner brackets, an outlet, a flag holder, and then the arm and luminaire.
all right. The garbage cans then, if you remember, we have those small, like gallon sized wrought irons that are welded to the poles. We're obviously not gonna be doing that, cause he just told you what we're gonna have on the poles and that wasn't included. So I'm thinking that less larger ones would maybe be more efficient for our staff so that we hit them all. I know that's always been an issue. I looked these over with Luke. We are going, I found a cheaper one than this because $1,200 to $1,300 for a garbage can seems crazy. And I found one for $700 that might fit our needs better. It's a 38 gallon capacity. And still fits in. What I'm doing here is just trying to fit in with our current benches because we will keep those. Those are still nice benches to keep. So they match that. And then another option that we were kind of looking for anything and everything that's gonna make people come downtown and say, wow, this is nice. So driving through Hortonville, you'll actually see this exact clock. Not this exact clock, but the same one in Hortonville. I spoke with the company. There's a lot of different options for this, as far as the logo goes on top, to the numbers, to the face color, to the paint color. They are 8 to 10 feet tall. We were kind of thinking, maybe this could either go at the bump outs or it could go down at St. John's Park to even out, and make that a little bit more flashy down there, and continue on through the downtown with our style. There's many options, like I said, base models around $10,000. Just something different, so that would bring things together downtown. As we go through this, I've been throwing out a few numbers. I didn't mention, we've been talking about putting some, Chad, you want to take that now and look at and go to your archway? When we were just sitting in a meeting, I said, what do you think about something like this going into the parking lot? Unfortunately, our parking lot entrance isn't as wide as we were hoping it would be. The clearance, more than likely isn't gonna allow for this. But we really wanna do something nice, something that makes that parking lot say, welcome to New London, welcome downtown. We have a meeting set up with a company out of Wapaka that does grandeur things, nice pillars, nice, something that we can do to welcome people downtown and just say, this is nice. As I say that, I know that we can hear dollar signs cha-chinging, cha-chinging, cha-chinging. So I don't know if you want to go any further into that.
Yep. So this concept, when we had a lot of those public information planning meetings, we wanted to dress up that entrance to that parking lot, showcase it. So this was one of the ideas that came up with, was to try to do some type of arch system. We met with New London Fabrication, got this conceptual design. This initial design that he came back, this hypothetically, this would be an all metal type thing. You could put lights in here, things like that. One of the problems is that, not sure where the miscommunication came from, but like Ginger said, he quoted us on like an 18-foot width. We need at least what, 24?
37,
We need 37 wide.
because the entrance itself is 28 feet.
Mhm. So-
And to be outside of that apron with a reasonable distance of a foot, centered on a 3-foot by 3-foot footing, that puts you centered at 37 feet,
So like Ginger said, more than
which is
likely,
massive.
this is probably gonna be a challenge if we want to do something like that. So we were kicking around the ideas instead, like Ginger was talking about, bring someone in. Maybe we do some pillars, and we've been kind of going on Google to find some examples. Google has not helped us a lot with finding decent examples, but we were like looking at other communities to see what we do. Maybe we could do something, like this, as a pillar scenario. Probably taller, you could put some lights into it, maybe coming from the top, not so much a picture in there, but maybe, we were talking about maybe getting a die-cast cutout of the city logo and maybe some backlit with that. There's some different options, but I think right now we're leaning towards recommending a pillar situation instead of the arch. We just think that arch is gonna be, as cool as arch would be, I think just that it's gonna be kind of challenging in there. Like Robert stated, he gave us some information of where that arch would be. So, I should look at this, 37 feet distance. The only place to really put arch or pillars would be in this, where he's got labeled the 3-foot locations there. Another challenge with an arch situation, because if we would go back any farther in here, this is the parking lot. And that would have to be pushed into the parking lot, which then you're almost gonna lose 2 stalls in the parking lot. We don't wanna do that. So you'd have to bring these pillars or the arch system up front. And the thing is, if you have an arch system that is this close to the turn, if you would turn into that, you'd have to look almost straight up to see that arch. Whereas going into an arch would be nicer if it's set back that you're driving up into it. Whereas pillars would be more of a local eye level as you're turning into it hypothetically. So to get something in here, we would have to put either the pillars or the arch in this location here. So, I think that jumps into the conversation of prices,
Sure,
unless there's any questions from that. But
right.
Ginger has put together a spreadsheet to give us, she was throwing out numbers throughout the presentation, but to put it in a summary type format, your planters, what she talked about here, potential cost of about 17,000, reservoir systems, and make it easier so we don't have to water them every day by any means. Those round clusters in the park, you're looking on the bookends, like Ginger was talking about, mini park and anchor park, you're talking about 3,000 there. Your snowflakes, the holiday snowflakes, the banners costs are here. Garbage cans, clock system, depending on if we do something now, or if we add that in, if and when we redesign St. John's Park to have potentially that, drive-through area to the alley, and then we kind of bring it back to the front, you could finance that at that time. Trees, I'm in the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club has talked about helping with the cost of the trees. We haven't talked about if it's a full cost for the trees, but the Rotary Club potentially could help out with the cost of the trees planting. I did put a cost in here for the pillars, and this was based off of his initial quote of 18 feet. I emailed him last week and said, whoa, we need something bigger than 18 feet. He was on vacation, so I couldn't get a number back to him, but the 18-foot one was gonna be about $20,000. So if you're going to 37, that price is gonna go up quite a bit. So we just wanted to kind of give you a summary. If the Rotary would help us with the tree cost, we're looking about, $90,000 for all of that, including potential clock for downtown, Christmas decorations and stuff like that. Before we go any further, we do have an opportunity for a donation / grant with this stuff. So I'm not gonna kind of allude to how far we're gonna go with that, but for us to have this opportunity, we need to come up with a game plan, and then I need to present that game plan for this potential donation. So what we would have to do as the committee and then the council, and John, if you want to grab public input in here somewhere as well, come up with our game plan. If you guys like this, this would be our game plan that I could present to that potential donation group and see what we can get out of that. I'm not sure if it's 100%, 50%, I don't know, but we need to have a starting point to present something to this group for a donation. Questions, John, if you want to ask a comment?
I would guess first, what does the council think about it? What do you mean, what's your guys' opinions?
My opinion, I love everything. I kind of would like to possibly see, like the pillar or plant, the 3 planters in that parking lot as well, one on each side, dressing up the plants
Sure.
in that area even a little bit more.
Yeah, so the person that I'm going to be working with is a design engineer. That is her job, is to like, and I told her I want it to be everything. Like if it needs to include a planter, if it needs to include lighting, if it needs to include, you know, some kind of spindle on top, you know, design it for us. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested and I'll give her that feedback as well.
Yeah, for that there. And then I would like to, you know, I know that we're not there yet with St. John's Park, but it would kind of be nice to see the concept moving
agree.
forward with that as well. What we would like to see St. John's look like while we're looking at all this and how that would tie in and have that available, even though we're not there and we're not funding it, but we, you know, that progression thinking.
Sure.
So otherwise I love everything and I love that clock tower idea
Yeah.
over there.
Good.
I especially like it because of Old City Hall and the clock tower there. It kind of ties those things together, St. John's and the Old City Hall building.
I'd definitely like the option to forklift them up and get them out of there for the winter, because as we know, they get hit, there's no other way around it. So that is a really nice option for the street crew and just for the longevity of them planners.
And they're gone, so you can clean the downtown up easier too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool stuff with some of these things like the planters or other stuff. I mean, if we install what Ginger has planned so far and we want more, you can add that. You can just finance a couple more and throw them in
Right.
depending where you want it. So it's not, something like that is not an end game right now that you have to have it perfect.
They're specifically made for us. So when I put the order in, they make them, and whether it's retrofitted to our equipment and things like that, that's kind of what I was looking for, and that's why
I guess any other question by?
Mr. Barrington.
How wide are our sidewalks and how wide are the planters? How much sidewalk walking space are we gonna have left?
Terrace area would be 4 foot wide. These are 30 inches wide. So they're not even close to the side of, I mean, they're close relatively, but they're not in the sidewalk whatsoever. They're in the terrace area. And if we set them at these hashed out marks, it gives us ample room, you know, if people are using them to access the sidewalk, it's not blocking off that whole area. They're short enough where you're still 2 foot on each side that you can navigate to the sidewalk.
I like the idea of the smaller garbage can too. If you're gonna dump those every couple of days, you don't need a great big 55-gallon
sure,
garbage can sitting out there.
right.
And if we need more, we can buy a couple more.
Right. Yeah, if we feel like where we're placing them is, you know, they're movable,
'Cause those little ones, I mean, you put a couple of cans in them little ones and it's
Yeah.
running over, so
right?
something like that, it's gonna be a lot nicer.
Any other discussion? What do you guys want to input for us?
I like the pot. No, I think they're great ideas. I love it all. Yeah, I love everything that you mentioned, Drew. I think that if you were the one that said go with it, like all of us would be like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't get burned
We
at
have
the
your
stake
back.
in 10 years. Oh, it was that ginger lady. Yeah.
I do like, Linda's idea though, addressing the pillar, like I'm really surprised that we can't. Really excited about that, so anything extra that we can put there, whether it's more flowers, lights, something. I would think would be awesome.
And those planters with watering them too, you're gonna save a lot of time on those watering. I mean, you fill them up on Friday, you don't have to go there on Saturday and Sunday like you're doing now.
Right, right.
I
That's
think that-
almost a full seasonal position.
Yes,
that we're
yeah, I think that's gonna be a big, big saving.
That we need somewhere else.
Any other discussion from, I guess, anybody? So what are we really looking for right now?
I think to provide staff the direction to go with the streetscaping items as presented. And then my next step would be kind of formalizing this into a presentation to give to this donation group, see what we can get out of that. And then we'll bring that back probably to the Board of Public Works, and let you know, do we need to fund 50%? Are we getting 80%? You won't know how much this donation is until we ask and run that,
So
run that
we-
presentation.
Are we looking for a motion or more of a,
Direction.
I would do a motion to direct staff on creating a plan based on what you saw today. Just something.
Have we decided whether we're gonna eliminate the arch, right? We're gonna go with some pillars?
That's part of the discussion right now. Like we said, just trying to get an arch in there is gonna be tight. It's gonna be tucked up the front. Like I said, when you turn into that, you know, if you're turning in from, you're going eastbound, or you're going westbound, turning into that, it's gonna be like right there type thing. You're not gonna see it, you know, the city of New London very well. If it was tucked back quite a ways, it'd be nice, that you could be driving towards it. But,
I wish we had some good concept designs for you, but I think that what we can put together, will be just as grandeur.
yeah, I think the pillars, we can create some cool
Yeah,
stuff.
That's what I was saying. I would like the pillars better than I do the arch.
Mhm.
$20,000 you're gonna save.
Well,
Significant
Well,
amount of
we don't know
money.
how much, we don't know how much those pillars are gonna
Oh, yeah, but they're not gonna be $20,000.
Well, and what about the idea of once St. John's Park is put up, done, putting that maybe on the backside towards the river and
Oh.
showing it there over the docks?
Mhm.
And doing an archway back there so that it can be seen from the river by the docks.
Really to
That-
see it there.
Well, people driving downtown probably wouldn't see it. It would be from the river
Yeah, to
It would
bring the
be a-
river business into downtown.
into the docks and into the
I see.
downtown. Yeah,
I like.
little economic development plug in there.
Mr. Barrington, you had something?
I agree. I don't, to put the arch in front of the parking lot, I don't think you'll see it, or you're gonna have people looking up. It's tight. I like the pillars a lot better. I think they're gonna show a lot more.
You don't think the pillars are gonna have any interference with, walking traffic?
They're totally set into what would be defined as the terrace area before the bump out. You can see that line up top, that is the defined sidewalk that passes through there.
So if you imagine, I mean, we've got the sidewalk, which has to stay open. That's our accessible sidewalk. So that'd be this section
Correct.
right here. Now, what Robert's talking about is the terrace. This is where either the trees would be way on the other side, the light poles are gonna be in the terrace, garbage cans, planters, all that streetscaping stuff would be in here, allowing the sidewalk stretch. Do you know what the width of the sidewalk is again?
It varies, but for the most part, it's 5.5.
Okay, so you got 5.5 width of clear space all the way down
And that'll be stamped concrete, right?
terrace.
The terrace will.
Oh, the terrace in areas.
Yeah.
Like that area there will have stamping.
Wasn't.
The color went to full length.
Color.
The stamping went in the defined areas that were mostly by intersections and openings where there's no cars parked to block it, to kind of enhance that area.
Any other discussion? So I guess we're looking for a motion. Should I word it first or not?
You can, but like Rob was saying, to direct staff to, you proceed with the plan as presented with pillars or arch, whatever you guys say, that choice.
If that, say it doesn't pass for the pillars, they can put them footings in now, so they don't have to tear it up later. If it's decided down the line, I mean, that'd be the smart way to do it.
Yeah, we wanna run conduit to it and get those footings done.
Yep, they gotta be done.
Yeah, we don't wanna do it later.
So I guess at this point, I'm looking for a motion.
So move. Yeah, motion what Chad said.
Can we amend what Chad said to be whether it was pillars or arches to decorative entrance?
However you wanna make the motion.
Not if I'm on the committee, I can't make it, I would.
So how about this? I'll make a motion to advise staff, Chad and staff to move forward for the presentation as presented to us tonight with the option of the pillars versus the arch. And let's move forward there and I guess I'll look for a second then. All right, so I made the motion to move forward, allow Chad and staff to move forward with the presentation as presented to us with the pillars as an option. Just so we can get the ball rolling and move forward. It was seconded by Mr. Herder. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Ginger.
Thanks, Ginger. Discussion on citywide garbage contracts.
Okay, so, I did have a few communities reach out to me, and Chad also reached out to, his group and he had some people respond as well. What I found out that, most of these communities that have, a garbage contract, most of them run for, they say the average length of most of these contracts are 5 years. And in those contracts, there's usually a step progression for each year moving forward of an increase. So everybody would know where they'd be at every year going forward during that contract time. I did not receive any feedback as far as most of them have been in contracts for quite a while, so they didn't have that transitioning phase of where they weren't under a contract and residents were in charge of their own trash. So I didn't receive much feedback there. John, did you figure out what residents are paying here? Did you have
I
a
did.
chance to look?
$21
It's 21.
a month.
It was 63 for 3 months.
Because I found with most of these, when they ran that 5-year contract, it ran, most of them were 133 to 160, the higher 60s was a majority of them, as high as 195 in the one case. And again, the pros to going to something like this is, yes, you can possibly gain a lower rate overall, possibly. It's not guaranteed. But on the other end of it, you also have to look at the residents who take care of their own trash and whatever means they want, and they don't have that monthly bill. Where this would be something that they would get at the end of the year, if we choose to go in that direction. A majority will actually, all but one had the amount assessed on the taxes, or it was a special charge, or some of the wording one was special assessment, one, but it was on your tax bill at the end of the year. You didn't have a chance to opt out of that program. If you live in that community, that was your garbage service and that was your cost.
When we talked about that tipping fee being extra, is that above the 160 or is that kind of blanketed in that
That
160?
was included. They have like, a set rate per can. And then you would find out quarterly what the tipping fees, so all the weight of the community, what they had, you would get that in a quarterly bill. And then you had to break that down. And even that charge out between all the residents.
So most of the municipalities, they were paying the tipping fee directly. It wasn't the
Correct.
contractor. So the contractor is only picking up and dumping. Whereas the municipality is taking care of paying the contractor and paying the county, in this case, directly to the tipping fees.
Yes.
So my opinion on this is kind of, it goes both ways. I look at my garbage bill per year, and this saves me $80 right off the top. For someone who has one small bag of garbage a week, that automatically, you know, I look at what I pay for my garbage right now, and I'm just like, really? I've literally thought about going to my neighbors and saying, you're single and you're single, should we all just get one can? Cause that's, you know, and because I've thought of that, I think, why should we all have to pay this? You know, what was that amount? $48 a quarter at 195 for the year, you know. So, and I know that there are people that they don't have garbage. I guess it's kind of, I kind of take a look at this and I can see it both ways, and I can see where I just know from experience that there are a lot of residents out there that don't have garbage, that need to have garbage. And it's reflected in their yards, and it's reflected in what they're putting in their actual recycling bins. So with that being said, I kind of feel like this is something that we need more public input on. What do the residents of New London want? Do they want us saving them $80 or more per year? Or do they want to be independent of it? I don't know what that ratio really is. I have a feeling that there's more people that are just getting, you know, the stamped of approval GFL cans out there, and they're paying what they're paying.
Without knowing how many people don't have it, it's hard to implement it, because those are the people that are gonna be doing the complaining, and I don't blame them.
Right.
So I guess we gotta look into it more before we can really.
That's why I'd like to hear more public input on it.
In the conversations that I've had, it's been about 50-50. There's
Yeah.
people that said the same thing that you've done. I have one bag of garbage, and there's several of them that get together on their block and only have one garbage. I've had others talk to me that they had so much garbage, they have 2 cans. I have business owners that bring their garbage to their business.
Mhm.
Me personally, I want to deal with my own garbage. That's not the city's job. That's my personal thought.
Can you take public input?
Absolutely.
I'm the treasurer for the town of Lebanon. We are also looking into doing town-wide garbage. We did a survey of the members of our town. It came back pretty much 60% wanted, they were very interested in it because of how much that we're paying to GFL. However, that was with the caveat that the same amount of people also felt that you must be allowed to opt out. So they were you know, there was a lot, and believe me, ever since we sent that survey, all I heard during taxes, when I was collecting taxes was, when's that gonna start? When's it gonna start? When's that gonna start? And for us, it's a little bit hairier. I don't know how it would work for you guys, but for us, we have to pay in advance and then collect on the taxes, so we can't do it until the end of the year. So I've been trying to explain that to people that it's not gonna start anytime in 2024. But everybody wants to know, when's that gonna start? When's that? They're all coming to us about that. But then we had people come to our board meetings that were like, absolutely not, because we are members of the Manawa Area Recycling Center in our township. People can take their garbage and recycling over to Manawa, and they can drop a bag of garbage for $4 and drop their recycling for free. So we had people that were like absolutely not interested, but overwhelmingly in our community, the people who responded to the survey, 60% of them wanted it, but only if they could have, if the citizens had the option to opt out. So just an FYI. And if they do the opt out, then that affects your cost per resident. Because if, you know, we have, I don't know exactly how many households we have in our township, but if, you know, a third of them opt out, then the price that they give us is obviously.
It's still the price per resident, whether the resident opts out or not, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, they would, if they were able to opt out, then the remaining people who opted in pay more.
Yeah, because the bill is the price per resident.
So I mean, but for most, out by us, many people are dumping GFL and going to Harder's because Harder's is cheaper.
And I see the same trend in New London and more garbage cans that are not GFL.
I do agree, it'd be nice to somehow negotiate a cost for everybody without having to make it mandatory, because I think it's gonna create, like Bobby said, it's gonna create some issues.
So I have an email from a gentleman that emailed today and has been following this issue along. I'll read what he said. So I do have some public comment for citywide garbage contract. I feel citizens of New London should have a choice if they want their garbage bill on their property tax bill. I'd like to have New London create a survey to find out how many people want the option to include garbage bill on property tax. I think the city should look into competitive bidding as well. So that was an email I got today, and Belinda, you brought up a good point about asking the people. I think we could probably set up a survey and stuff, but this has been a reoccurring thing on our agenda. And there's still nobody here that wants to talk about it. We get one person here and one person there. So I think it's up to everybody in this room to make a decision how we move forward with it.
Other thoughts on that?
And then the only other thing I would say is that competitive bidding is not enough. You hope when you're putting something out to bid that there's going to be more than 2 companies that can bid. And to my knowledge, that's really all we have in the area.
Correct.
Yes, that was the last 2 that I had conversations with. They received 2 bids.
One of the biggest points that I just want to make out with that, number one, if we do this, and it's fine if we kind of look at this, but another thing for staff time. I mean, we are strapped with staff time right now. So adding, this is going to be quite a bit. If we do an opt-out thing, we're going to be managing that. We have to manage who's getting charged what. We're going to get the phone calls if someone doesn't pick up. You didn't come pick up my garbage can, you gotta figure this out. We would be that middleman for that, all that stuff. And that's fine, but we all have to understand that if we're gonna do this, that we need to bump or factor in administrative time into this cost. We can't do it just with what we currently have right now. So potentially, you know, we're looking at hiring another part-time. We have budgeted for, we need to refill a current part-time position in that area right now. Potentially, if this goes through, do we look at budgeting enough to make that position a full-time with, you know, factoring in some money out of that? That would help in the back office a little bit. That's a potential. But just another thing, staff time, we're strapped. And just expect to throw this on to current staff, that would be tough.
And there will be a lot of phone calls. I mean, look,
We get them now,
There already is, yeah.
and we're totally out of it.
but now if we got some control over it, now people are gonna want a better response than others than just, hey, you gotta call up GFL because that, we have nothing to do with that. Now, if we would take this on, now it's gonna be more
Yes.
on the shoulders to say, hey, we need, come up with a solution or whatever.
When I can get here between 1 and 4, I can hear Nicole, she takes 1 or 2 phone calls daily. I mean, we can get a better number from her, but just kind of hearing and listening, that's what I'm gathering on.
I don't think the city should take on the responsibility. It's not the city's garbage, it's the residents. They
Is
wanna
there
switch
an
from-
option like, Lynn was saying, where we could take our garbage someplace?
Yeah,
Any
you-
residents in town, or could we go to Alpaca or
you
Oh, yeah,
can
you
go
can
to
take it-
Waiwega,
Waiwega?
You can take it to,
$20 a trailer pool.
you can take it to the recycling overrun.
Swan.
Swan Road?
Yeah,
Okay,
they'll take your garbage.
that's one option we could give people. Said if you don't like GFL, then you have to haul your own. But if you opt out from GFL, they're not gonna let you back in probably without a penalty, possibly, I don't know. What that would, if you'd call up GFL and say, I don't need to pick up my garbage anymore. And then all of a sudden, 2 months down the line, you don't like driving over to Alpaca or to Manawa, you call GFL, up, are they gonna say, sure, we'll come pick yours up again? I don't know. I guess I think we gotta look at this a little bit more, get some more input maybe. I don't know.
I don't know if they did, I don't know if they addressed that with us, but I know another complaint that people had was that currently, if you have GFL and let's say you spend 5 months in Florida, you can call them and suspend your service for the 5 months that you're down in Florida. But if you do the citywide, you can't suspend your service. Because if you suspend it while you're down in Florida, then you don't pay for it for those 5 months. But if you do a citywide, you can't suspend it, and you also don't get any credit for the fact that you were gone for 5 months. So that was another thing that some of the citizens were like, no, I have to be able to opt out because I'm a snowbird, out in our community, there's quite a few of them. So, I mean,
Thank you.
it's another complaint.
Thank you, that was good input.
Good point.
So I guess at this point, do we, as a group, do we wanna just scratch this idea or do you wanna go forward with some kind of survey? I guess that's where we're at.
If you're looking at a survey. I mean,
If we're looking at a
we
survey
could
or,
put a little QR code message in the utility bills. If you want to do that, and people could go onto a website and we can do a Survey Monkey type thing and collect input that way if you like.
What would the cost of that be?
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I think
off the top of my
that's,
head.
I think we owe at least the very least to that.
The
Let's see what the cost is.
the
on that.
advertising, April, do you remember what we just paid for advertising for that utility bill insert?
I was gonna say, it's not like 360 something?
Something like that. So that wasn't bad. And Survey Monkey, I think there's a membership fee now for something like that we can look at, but it's gonna be pretty nominal.
At least people are gonna say, at least we're looking into it. So if we
If
do a
we-
survey, I think that's probably our best.
If we do a
Yes, that-
survey and then publish our findings and, do the pros and cons and here are your options other than, just GFL or Herder, you've got the option of hauling your own at whatever price per bag of garbage, I think those are things that we just don't have enough information right now. And, and I hear everybody's great points here. Everybody's got great points and it's difficult to,
So with that, what would you all like to know? What would you want on the survey to ask?
Mr. Barrington?
One thing we're gonna have to know is the exact cost, or pretty close, when you send out that survey so that people know that some of these people, like we're saying now, don't have garbage service or they're working with their neighbor, put them in a can with their neighbor. We're gonna have to know the cost so that we can tell those people are doing that. If we go to this you're not paying nothing now, you are going to have to pay so much because there's no option. Or we're going to have to know,
That's probably something we're not gonna be able to lock down. You have to, you have to show that range in that survey, I would believe.
Ms. Tank, did you, when you guys were investigating that, did you know, do you guys have that option to opt out?
We currently don't provide any garbage service whatsoever in the town. People have been, it's been commented, just like for you guys, people have been commenting on it. It's gotten really bad since when GFL was doing those really excessive fuel surcharges. So then people were like, I have 2 properties in Lebanon. My garbage bills for 2 properties are pretty expensive, but I can't get away with just one. So I, because one's a rental. And so it's, yeah. It was just something that people have brought up before. You couldn't do garbage, you could only do recycling. It was in a town. I don't know what it is in the city, it's totally different. But in a town, we were not able to do garbage on the tax bill. We could only do recycling on a tax bill. Law changed recently that would allow us to do both. So that's why it has come back up into discussion in our township. So that's where you get the special assessments versus special charge thing. And so that's why we started looking into it. And for most people, the prices we were getting from either GFL or Herders were lower, but the problem was with such a high percentage of people wanting an opt-out, we can't guarantee people that that price would actually be the final price. And we're dealing obviously with a lot less residences than you are. Plus we have businesses the businesses would opt, like the farms would be able, who have dumpsters, would be able to opt out. So there were certain opt-out provisions that were automatic, but then just a citizen wanting to opt out was. So it was.
Okay.
We haven't done anything on it yet because of the costing. Like I said, we have to pay in advance, so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If no other discussion, I guess we need some kind of a direction or a motion.
Well, I think if we're directing staff to do a survey and ask questions, we need to direct them in what kind of information we want. I mean, otherwise they're just gonna come back next month and not have the right information for you.
Would how many people be interested in having your garbage pickup on your tax bill? Would that be a question to put on the survey?
Why don't we come up with a draft survey? I mean, we have a time, because you wouldn't implement this before 2025 anyway, because it'd be on that tax bill anyway, so why don't we come up with a draft survey? Maybe we can get Lynn's survey and just kind of come up with a draft, bring it to you guys next month. Do you guys like this? Is there another question you want to ask? We can throw that in there. You guys can give us direction and a motion at the next meeting to proceed with a utility insert and collect input for you guys for this topic, I guess.
I think that's a good idea. Or just word it like that. Come back next month with a little more of a something so
With a
we can
draft
see.
survey
Yep.
prepared and more work for Robert.
I guess in the meantime, if anybody comes up with a question that wasn't addressed tonight, either give myself an email or Robert and we can get it forwarded to get on that next agenda.
This is something that has so much intricate details to it that we can't just jump into it. I mean, the opt-out thing, the staffing thing, you want to collect more info. I mean, if the survey comes back and 80% of the people don't want this, well, now you got some input that you can show people that we did not take action because this is the input we received, so.
Everybody go to that, we'll move on. Okay, next, consider and approve using Safe Step sidewalk program. Robert?
Okay, this one's a little easier.
Maybe.
So I was approached by Scott Prochaska, like I said in my memo. He's the project manager for all of Wisconsin for the Safe Step sidewalk program. What it is a company that goes out, well, first they meet with you. You, kind of like I did in these steps, the biggest thing is getting on board with the program, if you want to go on it or not. Once you establish you want to go on it, what happens next is I sit down with their staff, set up the criteria, which that criteria sheet was in your packet. And this identifies everything from how many cracks per panel to how much deflection, any type of offsets, even on curb heads, on handicap ramps, any of those areas all have definition that you assign a value to. So let's say you come across a sidewalk, it's got a 3/4 gap, it's, the next one over is 3/4 inch high. All that will be defined when I sit down with them and what our tolerance is. They go out in the field, they map the area that we give them, and they assign what would be based off the criteria, what could they saw, and what would we regularly remove and replace. And what this does is this alleviates a lot of remove and replace panels that might be level for the panel, have a lip, maybe have one crack in it, but it's not opened up, so it's, you know, still a stable piece of concrete that they could saw and save the money versus remove and repair. Every one of these panels that are bad, that does not meet the criteria, they take a photo. If they were to saw it, they show right in the app or the program they give you, the angle they would cut it on to make everything ADA compliant. And then at the same time, supply you with a whole list of everything that needs to be removed and replaced, all set off of the budget that is already established that I get at the capital budget. So if we go forward through those steps, they go out, they do all the investigating, bring me a report back, say we can saw, it goes by square inches, X amount of square inches. At the same time, add up what the remove and repair would be, so you stay within that defined budget. And then, it would be approved. They go out to that area, everything's marked out already. They have a whole file that we send out to bid. He says they move in with, either 1 or 2 crews, and they're in a big van that has all their supplies there, because I asked about, you know, dust, silica, all that stuff. They have their own generators, their own vacuum systems, all set up on their saws. And they go out, mark that area, cut it at the angle to make it ADA compliant, and they move on to the next one. We have used it in the past, 2015 through 17, I believe he told me. He showed me some of the files. I know they did some work back here in this area. I don't know how we got away with it, or if, you know, things just didn't line up with staffing change. I don't know, but I think it's a really good option. It gives us the ability to cover more ground. Plus, with having a kind of a rollover budget from a previous year, I'd kind of like to look into some of these areas where we've looked into providing crosswalk areas, ADA compliant, that we might be able to use that towards that area and still cover this kind of ground. Does anybody have any questions on the program or anything about Safe Step?
So basically, we're going to do, say, 14 blocks of certain section this year and look at it. And then next year we'll go, that's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna go citywide. We're going to do strictly a
Sections.
section, okay?
What does it cost?
The
What is the
cost?
cost?
The cost is all off of your budget. They have a cost per inch cut. And they provide that after they go out and evaluate. It is about 1/3 the price of remove and replace. If
So
it's,
you only pay them as they do the work, you don't pay them for the research work that they've
no.
done?
They know up front they're not getting all the work because usually you start in your worst areas to try to cover that. And they know there's gonna be a lot more remove and replace than there is trip hazards and sign opportunities. But they know if you stay with a program like that and you cover the area, you're gonna come back to where you started. And if a lot of that's taken care of, then you're narrowing down your 3/4, maybe you're going down to a 1/2 inch and trying to remove all that. Then you're doing a lot more of it and covering more ground.
So basically, the amount of ground that's covered is dependent on how bad it is and how much remove and replace is needed to be done within the budget. So if they get a budget amount and they work within it. Might be 6 blocks, it might be 18 blocks, depending on, okay.
And they
Sounds like a great idea.
don't do the remove and replace. We still have to bid that
Right.
out.
We get that out.
Any other discussion? None, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Herder, second Mr. Ritchie to consider and approve the use of Safe Step sidewalk program. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is approve and recommend license and use agreement for sign placement on buildings located at 301 and 221 West North Water Street.
So with the new parking lot, where it's located, how the parking lot is set up, by state law, in order to have a qualified handicap identified area, you must have a sign in front of that stall. In order to do that in the area we have down there, there's 2 options. One would be to core through the sidewalk, put in a post, and put the sign on the post, or talk to 2 area businesses that are on each side and ask them to, if we could hang signs on their building. Now, by hanging, I don't mean fastening it with, big concrete anchors. 3M makes a beautiful 2-sided tape that is very durable and could hold those signs. I've talked with both businesses, both Lynn Tank and Keith Dowdy, and they have agreed that we could hang signs on their building. I put in there not more than 4 signs, and to the extent of one of our signs that has the terminology or the language we're using for parking enforcement, I don't foresee that whatsoever. This is mostly for the handicap parking sign. Only in the case where if we're having issues and I'd want to put something up temporarily to like get the ball rolling on parking procedures or something like that. But my sole intent is only for the handicap parking indication. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Seeing there's no questions, I guess we're looking for a motion.
We'll make a motion to recommend license and use agreement, placing signs of 301 and 221 West North Water.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, seconded by Mr. Herder to approve and recommend license and use agreement for sign placement on building located at 301 and 221 West North Water Street. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Director's report, Robert.
I have two service anniversaries. Ted Christian, Facility Superintendent, will be 9 years of service on May 11th. And Jared Garvin's wastewater operator, 10 years of service on May 30th. The downtown project had a few minor delays last week, but they're still on track. They're not behind schedule because of the weather. They did not get to pour the sidewalk, but they finished the curb and gutter at the intersection this morning, even though the concrete was about 2 hours late. Van Aert, hopefully will be in tomorrow, but with the weather, it's up in the air. I know they're really after getting the sidewalk poured in the intersection as well. DeGroot had started first thing this morning down at Wisconsin and North Water, in that stormwater easement. They started just short of the river and they're working it back towards the intersection. And then they have several structures to place in there. They figure they'll be there depending on weather, 3 to 4 days, and then they'll be moving to the east. They're not pulling out of town this time. Did have something else come up for downtown. The DNR had contacted me several weeks ago and wanted a Teams meeting, and this all involves the hazardous material phase 2.5 reading that they took down on North Water Street. So I received an email from them that states at Mini Park, DNR has determined that petroleum contamination has likely mitigated into the right-of-way from adjacent 521 West North Water Street property, which is owned by the city of New London, due to the presence of historic underground storage tanks known as USTs. According to the 1939 Sanborn map, the property is currently used as a park. The DNR has determined that a new case needs to be opened for this release and will be issuing the city of New London a responsible party letter as processor of the contaminated property. On top of that, they said the DNR has determined that petroleum contamination is very likely related to historic USTs located on North Pearl Street right away, which is owned by the city of New London, adjacent to 204 North Pearl Street. So in the roadway, kind of by the coffee shop.
Familiar grounds.
Thank you, Familiar Grounds. The DNR has determined that new case needs to be opened for this release and has determined that the city of New London as right-of-way holder is a responsible party. DNR requests that additional assessments be completed to determine the degree and extent of contamination and if the tanks remain within the road right-of-way. On top of that, at Site 12, which is just north of that, the DNR has determined that petroleum contamination is very likely and related to historic USTs located in North Pearl Street right-of-way, adjacent to 218 North Pearl. According to the 1926 Sanborn map, the DNR has determined that the new case needs to be open and for this release, and has been determined that the city of New London, as the roadway right-of-way holder, is the responsible party. DNR requests that additional assessments be completed to determine the degree and extent of contamination and if the tank is within the right-of-way. So what this means is during this meeting, the DOT was present during the meeting. The contamination that's at Mini Park has no effect on this project and it will continue to move forward. But in phase 2, when we get to that portion and we're on Pearl Street, even though it's not official, if it's our responsibility or whoever owned the tank, that's determined down the road when I get the official paperwork. But it's best that we do the investigating to make sure that the tanks are out of that ground in the right of way, so that it don't cause future problem and future demand from the DNR for inspecting. So being that AECom is under state contract for all the hazmat down here, and that MCC is the excavating company, and they have line item bids for all this, except for if we find a tank and if it needs to be removed, then that'll be something we have to talk about then as far as a change order. But the time to do the investigating will be when that roadbed is removed. And so that's kind of where we sit. You know, as this progresses and moves forward, I'll keep the committee up to date on everything that's going on, but that's kind of where we're at. And with that, that wraps up my report. If anybody has any questions.
So in short, you just told us that there's 3 underground tanks that are potentially needing to be dealt with.
In short, I'm saying there's 3 locations. 2 of them on Pearl Street that they have no record of the tanks being removed. Although they could have been, they just don't have
Oh.
record in all their checking.
Okay, we don't know if they've been
We
removed.
don't.
Okay,
The one site had 4 tanks. The northernmost site had 1 tank. And the only way to find out is
once it's.
to explore. And they figured they're taking the roadbed down 20 inches, that whether they do a probe method, we don't think a metal detector will be the way to go, because there's so much metal and stuff down there anyways that, but with that being open, I'm kind of thinking the one lateral, I mean, this is just an assumption and I shared it with the group, but we put in a lateral stub that was just north of the 4 tank area, and we had no odor, no lines of contamination in the soil whatsoever. And that was right at the extent of tank 1. So I'm thinking that they're not there, but the only true way to find out and satisfy anybody is to explore. So that's where we're at.
I know where the DNR was 7 years ago when they covered that stuff up. That's about when we were talking about when Coyle's gas station's down there, that garage was down there. That must have been when the tanks were put in. There's somebody around there that was 100 years old that could tell us whether them tanks were ever taken.
Any other discussion for Mr. Garski? Not, thanks, Robert. Future agenda items, large item disposal. And our next Board of Public Works meeting is June 3rd at 5:15. Any other discussion? If not, I'm looking for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie and seconded by Mr. Barrington. For adjournment, any other discussion?